Hello YouTubers. Today I asked whether or not there is any biblical evidence that Lilith existed. For those who are not familiar with the story of Lilith, it is said that she existed before God made Eve from Adam, that Lilith was Adam's first wife. In Jewish folklore, Lilith was created from the same clay that Adam was created. She was not made from Adam's rib. As such, she was considered equal to Adam, rather than being a part of Adam. The story goes that Lilith left Adam because she would not be subservient to Adam, and ended up coupling with Samael, also called Satan. Because of this, she became viewed as a demon of the night. While there is much other folklore associated with her, the only purpose of today's video is to see if there's any biblical evidence for Lilith. I may make a future video that goes into greater detail about the folklore of Lilith. I think there is evidence from the Bible that Lilith existed, primarily because the Bible indicates in the first chapter of Genesis that God created female before he created Eve. In Genesis 1:26 and 27, God is to have said, "Let us make man in our image." And then he created man in his image. But what is stranger is that if you pay close attention, you'll notice that God doesn't identify them as man and woman. Rather, he identifies them as male and female. This is important to understand considering the context of the next chapter. Keep in mind, this seems to have happened before God created Eve. Some say that Genesis 2 is just a retelling of Genesis 1 and that Genesis 1 is a reference to Eve. There are some problems with that view, however. From a plain interpretation of the scripture, Genesis 1 would have happened before Genesis 2. Imagine that. Chapter 1 happens before chapter 2. If you'll notice, Genesis 1 only goes up to the 6th day. The very next verse, starting in chapter 2, goes on to say that the heavens and earth were finished on the 6th day, and that on the next day God rested. So the passage is continuing the story, not retelling it, at least to some degree. Some say the story does back up a little bit to describe the creation of man and woman, but notice that they are not called male and female like in Genesis 1. Rather, they're called man and woman. So the description of man and woman being created seems to be a bit different than male and female being created. Concerning Eve, the point of the passage is that she was created from man so that Adam wouldn't be alone. Why would Adam be alone if God had created female at the same time as male, as Genesis 1 implies? Why, in Genesis 2 and subsequent chapters, were they called man and woman as opposed to male and female, like the first chapter of Genesis states? I suggest that it's probably because they were making a point that man and woman is something somewhat different than male and female, as God created in Genesis 1. The female that God created in Genesis 1 could have been Lilith. Well, those are my thoughts. If you found this video helpful, please show your support by subscribing. Thanks for your time.